On January 31st, 2026, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie was dropped off at her Tucson home at 9:48 p.m. By 1:47 a.m., her security system was manually bypassed. Software detected a figure at 2:12 a.m. The final electronic trace of Nancy Guthrie occurred at 2:28 a.m. when her pacemaker disconnected from her smartphone. The hunt moved from the ground to the air. Law enforcement deployed signal sniffers. For most of us, 2:28 a.m. is a time of deep sleep. But for Nancy Guthrie, it was the moment her world and the rhythm of her life was violently interrupted. Nancy didn't just disappear. Her heart sent a signal that something was wrong. At exactly 28 minutes past 2 on February 1st, 2026, a Bluetooth-enabled pacemaker app on an iPhone 14 registered a disconnect error. This wasn't a battery failure. It was the digital footprint of a kidnapping. Nancy was moved so far, so fast, that the technology keeping her alive lost contact with the phone left behind on her nightstand. This is Exhibit 404, and today we are deconstructing the most sophisticated elderly abduction in modern history. January 31st. It was a typical Saturday for the 84-year-old in the Catalina foothills of Tucson. She had dinner and a game night at the home of her daughter, Annie. She was described as sharp as a tack and in high spirits. At 9:48 p.m., her son-in-law, Tommaso Cioni, pulled his car into her driveway. He watched as she stepped inside. He saw the garage door close at 9:50 p.m. In the eyes of the law, Tommaso was the last friendly face to see her, but someone else was already in the shadows. While the Guthrie family was saying their goodnights, a figure was standing precisely 40 feet from her front door. They weren't there for the jewelry. They weren't there for the car. They were waiting for the house to go dark. The first sign of the intruder came at 1:47 a.m. A masked man wearing a black Ozark Trail hiker pack, a backpack sold exclusively at Walmart, stepped into the frame. He didn't look like a common thief. He was calm, he was armed, and he knew exactly where the camera was. He disconnected the camera with surgical precision, but he made a mistake. The software detected the movement. Even though Nancy didn't have a paid cloud subscription, the backup servers captured 44 seconds of black and white terror. He was wearing a mask that infrared lights turned white, an eerie, ghost-like visage. On the porch, investigators would later find the concerning signs Sheriff Chris Nanos spoke of. Splashes of blood. DNA confirmed. It belonged to Nancy. The struggle was short. The extraction was fast. While the world waited for a ransom call that never came, the FBI was launching a hunt that looked more like science fiction than a search party. In the skies above Tucson, Pima County Sheriff helicopters were spotted carrying a specialized device known as a signal sniffer.
Target signal acquired. Frequency locked at 2.4 gigahertz.
This wasn't just thermal imaging. The sniffer is designed to detect short-range radio frequency alerts. The goal? To catch the faint, desperate ping of Nancy's pacemaker before its internal battery or its range failed entirely. But as the digital signals grew faint, a physical clue emerged from the desert brush. 2 miles from Nancy's front door, an FBI evidence response team recovered a single black glove. It was discarded in a roadside field hidden in low brush. On February 14, 2026, the investigation hit a fever pitch. Preliminary lab results from Florida confirmed a breakthrough. The glove contained a DNA profile that matched none of the Guthrie family. Even more chilling, forensic imaging confirmed this glove was a perfect match for the ones worn by the masked man in the doorbell footage. Who is this man? The FBI has released a profile. Male, average build, approximately 5'9" to 5'10", but his most identifying feature remains that black 25-liter Ozark Trail hiker pack, a common backpack sold at Walmart that has now become a vessel for a dark secret. As the forensics team worked the glove, a more sinister element was at play. The vultures began to circle. A man named Derek Colella from Los Angeles was intercepted by the FBI after sending fake ransom texts to Nancy's daughter, demanding Bitcoin. He was a hoaxer, a predator of tragedy, but the real kidnapper remained silent. The deadlines of February 5th and February 9th passed with no proof of life, only a chilling note sent to media outlets demanding $67,000 just for the name of the abductor. Where is Nancy Guthrie? The search has now widened to the border town of Rio Rico. The trail is cold, the signals are fading, and the clock is ticking. On the night of February 10th, 2026, the quiet, semi-rural community of Rio Rico, just 15 miles north of the Mexican border, became the center of a federal firestorm. While the Guthrie family issued a desperate plea for proof of life, a massive convoy of Pima County Sheriff vehicles and FBI mobile command units surrounded a modest home. Earlier that day, a gray SUV had been pulled over in a high-stakes traffic stop south of Tucson. The driver, a 36-year-old delivery man named Carlos, was detained for hours. Neighbors watched in silence as the FBI's evidence response team began a court-authorized search of his residence. Carlos told reporters he was shocked, stating, "I didn't do anything. I'm innocent. I didn't even know who she was." By the next morning, he was released without charges. But the search wasn't a total failure. It signaled a major shift in the investigation. The FBI wasn't just looking in Tucson anymore. They were tracking a path toward the border. The pressure mounting on the investigation led to a goldmine of digital recovery. FBI Director Kash Patel revealed that agents had recovered previously inaccessible footage from the back-end servers of Nancy's disconnected Nest camera. The images are chilling. An armed individual wearing a handgun holster and carrying a small bouquet of weeds is seen trying to mask the lens. This wasn't a random act of violence, it was a cold, calculated extraction. While one team searched Rio Rico, another was canvassing the narrow, winding roads of the Catalina foothills. Over 4,000 tips flooded the hotline in just 24 hours. Agents are now meticulously searching washes and pull-offs between Nancy's home and the major highways. But as the search enters its third week, a new, darker theory is emerging. If this was a kidnapping for ransom, why has there been no verified contact? Why was a third ransom note sent to TMZ demanding $67,000 just for a name? The Guthrie family remains at an hour of desperation. They have offered to pay, they have begged for mercy, but they are met with a wall of silence. As of today, the $100,000 reward remains unclaimed, and Nancy Guthrie remains a ghost in the desert. On February 16, 2026, Sheriff Chris Nanos stepped in to end the speculation. In a stern, televised address, he formally cleared the Guthrie siblings and their spouses. To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel, Nanos stated. The Guthrie family are victims, plain and simple. The family had spent 2 weeks in a nightmare, with Savannah Guthrie taking a leave of absence from the Today Show to remain on the ground in Tucson. They had been cleared by the law, but they were still haunted by the silence. Because while the family was being ruled out, the DNA was checking in. The black glove found in a roadside field had finally yielded its secrets. The profile was an unknown male, a profile that didn't match Tommaso, it didn't match the delivery driver Carlos, and it didn't match any relative. The FBI is now entering that code into CODIS, the national database of convicted felons. Somewhere in that system, the name of the man with the Ozark Trail backpack is waiting to be found. But as the investigation enters its 3rd week, the most terrifying question remains. If the DNA leads to a name, will that name lead them to Nancy?